In today's video, I'm going to review some Progeny Press study guides. I have one, which is the Wagon Wheels study guide for grades 1 to 3. And I have another one, which is the Cricket in Times Square study guide, which is for grades 4 to 6. Keep in mind that these grade ranges are just kind of give you a range that they might be most appropriate for, but feel free to use them for younger or higher grade levels as you see fit. So the digital study guides are so awesome because they're actually fillable. So the students can actually type in their answers. But if you prefer pencil to paper work, you can also print them out and do it that way. So I love how you can do it either way that suits your child, or maybe some things you want to have them do on the computer, some things you want to print out. It's totally up to you. But let's start with our Wagon Wheels study guide. So this book is a level 3 book, but the study guide is geared towards 1st to 3rd grades. I would say that a 1st grader might like to do this orally, as is the case with my 1st grader. My 1st grader is not quite at the level yet to read this study guide independently, but she still can answer the questions. So I do think that is another option, that you can work a lot of this orally if you do have a student who is not quite fluent in reading and writing yet. So let me take you through this and show you what it's like. Okay, so first we have the table of contents here, and then we get into notes to the instructor about how to use the study guides. And basically the format for using Progeny Press study guides is that a student should read the book during the first week, and then in the weeks after, they should typically work about 1 page per day of the study guide. The reason that you want to have them read the entire book first is so that they have a really good understanding of the novel or the book, and then they can dive deeper through the study guide. During the use of the study guide, they can definitely go back to the book, reread parts. If you are guiding it with a younger child, I would even encourage you to go back and reread those chapters that you're covering that day. But older kids might just read it once and kind of use it to go back. But that's the basic gist of how the study guides work. Each study guide does give you a synopsis of the book, and of course about the author, and some background information. Now the background information is different than the synopsis of the book, because the background information tells you kind of what was going on historically or why this book was written. So in the case of Wagon Wheels, it was the time after the Civil War, and so it gives you a little background information about that. All of the Progeny Press study guides, including this one, have before you read activities. These are the perfect activities to actually do that first week while you are reading the book, but you could do 1 week where you did the before you read activities and then the next week start reading the book. But I do think it pairs really nicely and kind of starts to build excitement for the student when you're reading and doing the before you read activities as well. So in this case, there is map work and discussion. So it's discuss slavery in the Civil War and discuss the Homestead Act of 1862 and look at photographs of the Kansas prairie. So those are all different things that you can do before you read, so the child has a background understanding of this book as well. Then we have some vocabulary, and as you can see here, we can type in the answer, but again, you can print out the study guide too. Typically, we usually print the study guides out, but if your student does prefer this online, I do love this option. I especially love this option for teachers because they do allow teachers to distribute to their students in a secure way also. And if you're a homeschool family, all of your children are allowed to use it too. So for the price, it's a really great value because you can use it over and over with all your students. So here we have your definition and a dictionary definition for each of the words. And then we have where we get into the actual comprehension questions from the chapters. So for this case, it's chapters 1 and 2, and it asks some basic comprehension type questions to see if the child has understood the story, such as what things made the dugout feel like a home. But then it goes beyond that to list 3 things that make your house feel like a home. And why were the boys scared when the Indians rode into Nicodemus? So questions that make sure they understood it. But then each section is going to have a dig deeper, and this will tie in a biblical application, which I, of course, love. So it says in Luke 12:24, Jesus says, consider the ravens, and so forth. This verse tells us that God will make sure that we have what we need. How did the people of Nicodemus receive what they needed during the hard winter? So again, this is too difficult for my first grader to read on her own, but we can discuss this. So you don't have to have them write everything either. And then we go into Luke 3:11 and so forth. And then we go to chapters 3 and 4 with our comprehension questions, and then our digging deeper. Here we have Ecclesiastes 4:9-12, but also some of the digging deeper will just help them to think more critically or think about things they might not have thought about before, such as the boys had to walk 150 miles to meet their father. If you were asked to do this, do you think you could? So that's also a really great time to maybe look on a map and kind of map out what's 150 miles and give them, oh, from here to grandma's is this many miles, and so they can start making those connections of how long that really is and that sort of thing. So our study guide goes through like this, and then we have a fact or opinion. So not all of them are going to have fact or opinion, but in this Wagon Wheels study guide, it does. And so it explains what fact or opinion is, and then the student can choose fact or opinion if they're doing it digitally, and if it's printed out, they can write an F or an O. And then this particular study guide also works on compound words. So they're going to look for compound words, and then they're going to illustrate compound words. And the cool thing is about this, when you're doing it digitally, is you can actually insert images. It has it set up where you can browse and insert from your computer, insert images. Really cool that they've gone that extra step to do that. There's also a crossword puzzle. Now this will need to be printed if you did want to do the crossword puzzle. And then after you read activities. And honestly, the after you read activities are my favorite part of the Progeny Press study guides, because they are really those hands-on activities that bring books to life. I absolutely love hands-on activities. So in this case, you can make cornbread, you can make a clay model of a dugout, sing American folk songs, and even write a 1 or 2 paragraph description of what a prairie fire is, research the Yellowstone National Park, or start a prairie yourself. And then after that, it goes beyond that. So you can choose 1, you could choose none, you could choose all 6. It's totally up to you, but those are ideas to get you going. And if you want even more, there is a Pinterest board. And then at the very end, there are additional resources. They always give you other books by that author, books of related interest. So if you like books of this genre and this type of, historical time in this case, then it gives you books that you might be interested in. And it has, in this particular case, a resource address where you can buy seeds that it mentions. So in addition, with every study guide, you do get an answer key, which comes as a separate file, which is nice because you can give your students the one file and not give them the answer key. So here we have the answers for the vocabulary and the comprehension questions and all of that. So this is just a little 2-page answer key. Now let's take a look at our Cricket in Times Square study guide. This again is for grades 4 to 6, but in my opinion, it can go lower or higher. Again, those are the range that they list, but use your judgment. You're going to notice that this is going to follow a similar style and format to the Wagon Wheels, but it is going to be a little more advanced. We've got our synopsis about the author, our background information here, and then we have our ideas for pre-reading activities, oral or written reports, New York City find, maps, Chinatown, and it gives you an idea of some books that you could read to learn about Chinatown. And then we have our vocabulary, And notice here, they're matching words to definitions. And then here we're looking at adverbs and verbs. So here, you notice that took it up a notch from the 1st to 3rd grade because it's getting into more grammar concepts. Then here we have the setting of the story, a writing assignment, along with questions, thinking about the story. So why do you think Paul bought a newspaper from Mario? Why do you think he didn't wait for the change from his purchase? So these aren't right or wrong answers, but it's like those digging deeper questions where it gets them thinking critically and making connections and realizations on their own. And then we have digging even deeper, which makes that biblical application and optional project. And then it goes on to chapters 5 and 6. So as you can see, this will take students a lot longer than the Wagon Wheel study guide will, because not only are they working on vocabulary for each group of chapters, but then there's optional projects for each group of chapters. There could be writing assignments and different things. So it is very likely the students will take about 8 or even 10 weeks to finish a study guide in the upper grades. Here we're talking about dialect. Now here we're talking about in context and out of context. Here's our questions and thinking about a story, digging deeper. Notice the vocabulary has been different every time. I love that. Here we're dealing with fact or opinion, but notice we have it in a different format where we are given a sentence and now we're dropping down to the fact or opinion. Questions, thinking about the story, digging deeper. Our vocabulary, obviously, the Cricket Times Square is a much larger book than Wagon Wheels 2. So again, that accounts for the length of time it will take the students to do this study guide. Similes and metaphors. As you can see, it covers tons of language arts concepts in one study guide, which is really great. In fact, in the high school years, Progeny Press says that one study guide is equal to about 1/4 of a credit. So if you want to do a full year of high school, it would be about 4 study guides for the whole year for 1 full credit. So just to kind of put it in, to give it understanding of kind of what these encompass as the students get older. And then our summary. We've got a pros and a cons. Would you want to be famous? Why or why not? I love that. And then ideas for our post-reading activities, which is music appreciation. This would be a great time to actually go see an opera or something if you could. And then an art project, a cooking project, like making a simple chicken stir fry. Yummy, yummy. Learn to eat with chopsticks. And then our additional resources. The Progeny Press study guides are hands down my favorite study guides. I think they're super engaging. I think they really encompass so much for language arts. They're fabulous. I highly recommend them. I love them. I love them across all grade levels, and I hope this was helpful to you. I'm going to leave a link down below where you can find these 2 study guides, as well as the link to the Homeschool Review Crew blog post where you can see lots more reviews on Progeny Press study guides. I also reviewed a couple Progeny Press study guides last year, and I'll put that link down below too. So go check out all those links. Let me know if you have any questions. As always, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe if you love all things education.